Okay, and you're finished, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Jim Percy. I'm the chair of Greenway NAC, and I'd like to welcome you to the meeting tonight. And also remind you, our next meeting is scheduled for April 21st at 6:30, be the third Thursday in April. And always subject to change, but that's what we have scheduled and probably will happen. I'm gonna go right into the order here. Community policing, did you ever talk to anybody from there, Miles?
They were sent the invite.
Okay,
Not sure where they're at.
well, if they don't show up, that gives us 10 minutes more. And again, THPRD, Cathi Ellis is having logistic problems getting on.
She'll send me the talking points and I'll send them to Rhonda to include in the minutes. So if you want to
Okay,
see them there.
and so,
And then Jim, I have a city update I can do.
okay, you want to do that, or shall we just?
Yeah.
Let Steve go into his. I mean, we got, Lacey was planning on 7 o'clock. He's got, that gives him 23 minutes, and might as well just go ahead and get it done, right?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
You okay with that, Stephen?
Yeah, it's the reason why I got here when I did, just in case we're ready to go. So
Okay, you got 23 minutes actually.
okay, I will go fairly quickly here. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Sparks. I'm the executive administrator for long range planning with the district, and we're here this evening to talk about the bond measure that our board just authorized on Monday evening to refer that bond measure to the May ballot, the May 2022 ballot. And this is a measure much like the measure that was approved in 2014. That was a $680 million bond, and that raised almost $800 million through bond premiums. And we were able to deliver on everything that we promised in that bond measure. However, we are now in the last year of projects for that bond, and we still have need across the district for a great many different areas of need across the district, which I'll get to here in just a second. Anyway, so we're looking forward with this bond measure of a 7-year bond program, so 7 years of projects. This is going to be a proposal to increase property taxes 25 cents per assessed property value, $1,000 of assessed property value. And what I'd like to do here right now, instead of you listening to me talk, I'm going to turn on here, I hope, okay, so I hope everyone's able to see this web page right here. This is our bond web page, and I will put the link in the chat before this evening's over, so you have an opportunity to go look at it at your leisure. But on this page is everything you could possibly want to know about the bond. Never mind the student running with the unfortunate choice of a Royals uniform towards the camera, but that was the Raleigh Hills playground. And that's one of our major projects that we're proposing to do, is to replace the Raleigh Hills campus. We're also proposing to replace Beaverton High School. Those two schools are our oldest schools in the district. Beaverton High School was built in 1915, and Raleigh Hills, the first building, was built in 1927. So we have some very old buildings. They are not anywhere near the standard that we would expect for our schools, our new schools. And there's just seismic issues and other things that we have looked at, and frankly, it's going to be easier and more cost effective to replace those two buildings. So on this webpage here, it's really pretty easy to navigate. And typically I would play this video for you, which is a really great summary of what the bond program is and what we propose to do. But given we have a limited amount of time here, and I do want to reserve some time for our board member, Becky Timchuk, to speak to you and to answer any questions you have. But I really highly recommend looking at this video. It's only 3 minutes, so it'd be well worth your time. Right down here in this part of the web page is a high-level summary of the areas of funding that we're looking at doing. So the modernization bucket is our biggest one. That includes the new schools, but it also includes things like what we're doing this summer through different from the bond program that we're currently in right now, of upgrading the classroom. So at Greenway this summer, we're going to be putting in permanent walls to separate the classrooms in one wing of the school. It was built with more of an open floor plan, and having elementary school kids sit quietly and not disturb other classes is proven not to be an effective strategy. So the school wanted, and we are building through the 2014 bond, permanent walls for those classrooms. The technology, for example, is all the devices that we bought under the last bond. We need to continue to upgrade and replace those devices. And seismic upgrades, that's pretty self-explanatory. We have a lot of need there. And deferred maintenance. We have probably about $1 billion worth of deferred maintenance district-wide. So we know we're not going to be able to cover it all in this bond, but it helps us move forward and stay abreast of our really older and near failing assets that we have in the school. This is a really good link here. So if you have specific schools that you're interested in, you can go and see, okay, well, what's scheduled for that school. So if I went to the high schools here and I wanted to see what was going on at Southridge in terms of what's the plan for Southridge in this bond. So you can see the types of things that we have programmed for that school. And we've got to upgrade the HVAC. It's more than 20 years old. And I know some of you may have been at the, there was a meeting with the federal Secretary of Education and the state secretary, and I think the governor was there. And apparently it was like 90 degrees in the building. So those are the kinds of things that we need to do. Moving on here, keep moving back. So here is an explanation of what we're proposing to do for this ballot measure. And you'll look in the second box right here, the average assessed property value, and you'll see $303,000. That seems to be a very specific number. For the Beaverton School District area, the average assessed property value is $303,000. So your property value, your assessed property value might be a little bit higher, might be a little bit lower. So we're using this average so you can see what the estimated tax total would be for a property of that amount. You could also look to see what it would be for your property if you look at your property taxes. And you can, I've seen this 101 times, so I know how to navigate this. But if you look at your tax bill, you'll see what your assessed value is. It's important to know the difference between assessed value and what the market will provide. They're two very different numbers. And the assessed value is almost always lower than what the market value might be. And then lastly, I would like to call your attention to these four buttons right here. This button is a way for you to ask any question that you want. It goes to our team immediately, and we are addressing those questions within 24 hours, if not faster. Also, on this button, you can see every single report we've got that's related to our facilities, what we're doing in the district, and the like. So it's got the seismic assessments in there. It's got the facility assessments. It's got the population and enrollment forecasts. It's just loaded with data. And then lastly, if you're just interested to know what kinds of questions the community has been asking, we are putting all that in our FAQ, which is also a really good source of information. So being mindful of the time, I will stop with that, and I'll turn it over to board member Timchuk and allow her some time to speak as well.
Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity for the school district to join the Greenway NAC meeting. I live in the greater Greenway area and have been here about 40 years and watched Southridge be built and Conestoga be built. And my kids went to Highton and Conestoga and Southridge. And so I've really watched this area of the Beaverton School District grow. And I just welcome the opportunity to be a part of the school board, and that we are seeing this as being a continuation of how we as residents in Beaverton have invested in our schools, invested in our buildings. And we know having safe schools that are properly ventilated, that are secure, that is the way our students learn the best and are have the best education. And it's the way to keep our staff also in a safe atmosphere. And we need to continue to do that by investing in our schools and keeping up the maintenance, and especially giving special attention to the seismic. That is something we're very proud of here in the Beaverton area. But we have a very new, nice high school in Mountainside, and now it's time to build a brand new high school with Beaverton. And it's going to be a beautiful high school, as well as our elementary school of Raleigh Hills Elementary. Those are the two main things, as Steve mentioned, that are a part of this bond. The other thing I just want to point out, that if we don't get this bond, we still are going to have things that happen in our school districts. There's still going to be roofs that leak. There's still going to be computers that break down. And all of those things are going to have to be paid for out of our general fund. We're not going to let roofs go leaking, and we're not going to have kids without computers or staff without computers. We'll have to replace those, but those will have to come out of our general fund. And that means that the school district and the school board will have to make decisions that we will not have enough money to cover all of that. So that means we'll have to do without some things, and that could be staffing, or it could be equipment. So this bond is very much needed so that we can keep up with the needs of the district and not have to take it out of our general fund. We've been good stewards of the money, as Steve mentioned. Everything that we said that we were going to do in the last bond in 2014, we did. And we plan on doing the same thing with this bond, and then in the bonds going, so that we can keep up with the needs of the district. It means adding classrooms where it's needed in the north part of the district where we still have growth. It means being able to replace those new technology. We were very fortunate when the pandemic hit that we had computers in our kids' hands, and we were able to go to distance learning right away, because that was the investment that the taxpayer in Beaverton put into the school district. And we so appreciate that opportunity. So we ask that you will vote for this bond. We'll be glad to answer any questions. And if you have any other things besides going to the school district, you can also go to Yes for Beaverton Schools to volunteer or to contribute to the campaign. You'll be seeing a lot about this campaign in the next 3 months. We know that we need to provide our taxpayers, our citizens of Beaverton, the why you need to invest in education, the why you need to invest in our schools. And we will do everything we can to provide the answers to your questions and provide the why it's important to invest in our schools. But really appreciate the time this evening, and really appreciate all the work that our neighborhood associations do to keep our community a great livable place for all of our citizens.
And I just want to add one thing, because I don't think I mentioned it earlier and I didn't hear Ms. Timjuk say it. We're hoping to raise approximately $725 million in this bond measure. That is the result of asking for that 25-cent increase in the tax rate. I did see a statement in a question. James, as a 96 Beaver, you're a lot younger than I am. I was here in 96. I was not in school. I was working for the city of Beaverton, but we'll have a lot of information on our webpage that you should certainly check out. And as we move further along in our designs, then there will be opportunities for public review and comment on that, and not just through the land use process. I saw another comment about can the COVID funding, help pay for the HVAC. We have used a whole lot of federal dollars to upgrade our air exchange and filtration systems on our HVACs. With Southridge, for example, the system is just basically it's at the end of its useful life. And if we can leverage other dollars into projects, we do. For example, the $40 million that we have identified for seismic, there are annual grant opportunities through the state to get seismic dollars, and having this amount of money makes us that much more competitive when it comes to like matching grants and things like that. We've done very well with grant applications. We also have, if we pass the bond, we'll be eligible for $8 million in matching grant dollars from the state in the from the Oregon Department of Education. So it's not just if we can leverage those dollars, we do.
Every dollar that we are able to do better within the bond, that means that we'll be able to do that many more projects. The money is specifically in a bond, has to go for actual operations construction. It cannot go for any programming or staffing. Unfortunately, it has to go for what we make the promise to the taxpayer that we will spend the money on. But any money that is in excess, we would put more into seismic. We would just be able to do more deferred maintenance if we were able to have any additional funds. Any other questions?
Well, Miles, Jim, thanks again. I will put the link to the bond item, the webpage in the chat, and I will also put my email address in there in case anybody wants to send an email to me directly with a question. As some of you might know, I go by the name Steve Sparks, but in the email, it's got to be Stephen Sparks, just like it is there on the screen, because Steve Sparks is the head custodian up at Bonnie Slope Elementary School, and he keeps getting my email, and he's been really nice about it, but he's also threatened that I'll have to come up and pull weeds for him one summer if he keeps getting them. So anyway, please, Stephen Sparks.
And board members are very happy to answer any questions you may have too, but thank you so much for the opportunity to share with the group.
Okay, thank you. And Miles, can you send that link out to their stuff tomorrow to the rest of the NAC just by email? That gets, because we have several hundred on our list, or 100, and we get 10 here, so we'll get that information out to everybody. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Miles, Lacey hasn't showed in, right? Well, why don't you go ahead with
Jim.
Huh?
The mayor is here.
Oh, you want to just, oh yeah, she's ready to go.
Yep.
Go to Lacey.
Ready to
Okay.
go. Well, I took away from that meeting that we will all be mailing Steve Sparks so we can see Steven Sparks pull weeds this summer. So I'm in for that.
You know, I knew if I said something like that, somebody would do that. And I'll be flashing back to my youth as a kid when I popped off to my parents. It was, you're out there pulling weeds.
Whatever it takes to, it could be like a jogathon. We could raise money for how many hours you spend out in the sun for the people of that school. So
sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I am just making my rounds out to boards and commissions. And so I don't have a real agenda. This is my fourth board and commission meeting in the last couple of days. So I would say overall, the big things to pay attention to from City Council are we set our goals in December in a meeting. We got together. It was the first time this entire City Council was together in person. So that was pretty memorable. We set outlines for what we want our goals to be for the year. And in the new form of government, the way that it works is council sets high-level goals and the city manager comes back with a work plan saying, based on your input, based on what you've told us are your goals, here's the work the city is going to be doing this year to meet your goals in every arena. And that is quite a different, for those who have followed city council for years, that is quite a different path than what we had done in the past, which was be very directive. This is what council wants to accomplish, down into the nitty gritty. And so this is really a challenge for some of us that have served for a while, which it seems crazy that Mark Sansucci is term limited and I'll be the longest serving city councilor, mayor. I'll have 8 years of service and I'll be the longest serving one. So I do think there is a timestamp in the future where we no longer will have to tell community members in this new form of government, in the new way we're doing it. I'm hoping within 6 months it is just the government. This is how we operate. But bringing people through the process has been a lot harder and more challenging than I think anticipated, not only for our staff, where the agency for 30 years was built around serving a strong mayor, to our city council that have learned to kind of navigate in the old system, are trying to learn new habits in our new system. And then we have new city councilors. We have 3 basically brand new city councilors. And with the election, with Mark Fagan stepping down, we'll have 4, and Ashley Hartmeyer Prigg has to run again because of a technicality in our charter. So she'll have 5 races in 14 months. And so that's something we hope to fix in the future, because running for office is exhausting. I can't imagine having to do it that many times in very short order, and it's really expensive. But with her, we'll bring through 3 brand new city councilors. So we're going to be in this kind of storming, norming, learning phase for quite some time as we kind of learn to execute on what we're doing. So next Thursday at council, the city council body will be reviewing the city manager's work plan to either say, yeah, we're on it. Yeah, you're on the right path. You got everything that we said into this plan, or we're going to do some direction on tweaking what we want the work plan to look like. So that is the big body of work. And then right after that, we'll roll into budget season. And so that is the 2 main kind of goals, or the 2 main jobs of city councilors are the managing the budget and setting policy. So we'll start working in the budget quick order right after that. Of course, that we have a million little projects going on. The fountain opened in Central Beaverton, which was a monumentous task to get built during a global pandemic, but it's finally open and we'll have it open this summer. It's one of the few free places community members can congregate with their kids in a water feature like that. It's a really important aspect, I think, in the city as a parent of a young person. Paying $2 or $3 or $4 to a drop-in center to go to something like that is reasonable, because I have 1 kid. I think about families that have 4 or 5 kids. That becomes a very expensive outing for them. And then, of course, we're cutting the ribbon on the Patricia Resource Center for the Arts in the first week of March. And so that has been a long-term capital campaign project of the city. That is just the ribbon cutting is just the beginning, but it sure feels like it took a lot of work to get to the beginning. And then it will be making sure people are in it, utilizing it, that it's not just a facility for those that are wealthy. And so that is a long-term thing I've been concerned about, that I'll continue to work towards as long as I'm an elected official here, is that building is a people-owned building, and being able to utilize it will be incredibly important. So those are kind of the main things, like city goals that we're kind of working on. Of course, I have my hands in a bunch of things, and I'm happy to go in any direction you want to go tonight or answer questions. So I don't know, Jim, do people want to ask me questions, or how do you want to do this?
Forgot I was muted. Anyway, let's just open it up for questions. That okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody have a question for the mayor? I assume she'll answer any question. I mean,
If I don't want to answer it, I'll just tell Biles to answer it. No
well,
worries.
yeah. Then you just say get back later, right?
That's why he makes the big bucks.
You know, I was reading something on Nextdoor this morning, and
Oh man, when you start a sentence like that, Jim, go on.
well, it had to do with crime, and they were blaming you, so
course.
and the police chief, and I was just wondering what's your reaction. I mean, it's all over, and
Yeah.
and some of it has made it hard, and the fact that a lot of things you just have to cite them, you can't arrest them and take them, and I was just wondering what comments you had for that.
Sure. Well, next door is a dumpster fire that is challenging to stay in and out of, but I do know that I get quite a bit of the blame in the crime thing. So I'll give you kind of some high level things that are happening that make it complicated for us. One, people are conflating homelessness and crime. Sometimes they overlap. Sometimes homeless people commit crimes, but just because they are homeless does not mean they commit crimes, or all the people committing crimes are homeless. So that is a challenging thing when we're trying to separate out those two narratives to kind of how we dress them. The second one with crime, and I don't know if you guys had a police officer present to you tonight or not, they are feeling like they don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox because of some things that have happened, right? Before the Cadillac converters were being stolen at a really high rate, January 1, the Oregon legislature put into effect recycling companies buying Cadillac converters now have to prove where they're coming from. So if they're stolen, they can no longer buy them. And that is taking, here we are in February, 5 weeks after the passage of this bill, it's starting to finally have some teeth. We couldn't really do a lot about it before because of that. So now we have a state fix that is hopefully trending us in the right direction for Cadillac converters, which seem to be a lot of what people are complaining about happening. Two, the county jail is near capacity because of COVID. So the county jail is full of really high risk offenders. We're talking like murder, those type of criminal offenses are being held in the county jail because of a lack of resources to get trials happening. Now, that is not done by me. That is done by the DA. That is done by the county sheriff. The county sheriff runs and operates the jail. COVID has meant that we've had to have less people in the county jail than we normally, about 25% less. So that is a lot of capacity issue that is experiencing at the jail. And so at my request, the Washington County mayors met last Friday with the DA, with the sheriff, to talk about the jail specifically. What do we need to do in local municipalities so our police officers have the tool in the toolbox to arrest if they need to arrest? So of course, they're the ones that told us all the statistics, the trouble they're having. So we're looking at as many alternative resources as we can. Can we use municipal courts, like Beaverton has a municipal court, to see low level offenses? We would never see a crime like rape or murder or anything of that level, but could we see some other low level crimes so that way we're able to pull the pressure valve off of that court system so they can focus on the high rate of offenders to get them out of the jail into the state system, so we have capacity that opens. We have less judges in Washington County than Multnomah County, so there's just there's only a certain amount of number of cases they can see individually. And so there's a lot of talk of mayors banding together with some justice people to go ask the governor to allocate some additional resources. That takes a legislative fix. That is not something we can turn on a dime, but we have to make the strong case that we need to kind of start moving that direction. So we have a little bit of that. We have, and we just have, issues with homelessness like every city has. And so the 8 large city mayors, which I'm a part of, is asking the state legislature in this short session right now to free up resources for cities. We do not have a line item dedicated to homeless services. We are not the level of government that typically would be dealing with this. It's often a county or stuff of that nature. So we, with COVID, with our own budget, are facing a lot of compression issues, and our ability to do more in homelessness is limited by our budget restraint. So the 8 mayors put together an ask that went in 2 days ago. The session, as you know, or maybe you don't know, it's a short session, so it ends at the end of February. So we have a meaningful ask out to our state legislator to free resources. Mayors have to lead through crisis and deal with issues that other state levels don't have to deal with. We need the resources from the government to address some of these issues that our community is seeing. We have some long-term fixes in the pipeline. Beaverton received about $2.5 million to build a homeless shelter that will be operated by the county. So the city council right now is working through the really tedious job of figuring out where we're going to put it in the city, because I will tell you 100,000 people at one time are telling us we do not want it near us. So that will be the hardest decision I think this council makes this year, is where that facility is going to go. That's, we're talking 12 to 18 months out for us to be able to have something like that. The houseless service bond that was passed at Metro has money coming into the region, not fast enough. So mayors are asking for money for a 6 to 9 month. The next 6 to 9 months, can we make a meaningful dent in homeless services? So just to be clear, I've not directed our police department to not arrest people if they're violating a crime. I've encouraged them to use the full extent of the law. But just to be clear, in this new form of government, I do not direct the police department. I do not have the ability to direct the police chief. That is the city manager. So unfortunately, in next door, I'm getting blamed for something I don't have control over, because the Beaverton voters took that ability away from the mayor's office. So while I understand people want to blame somebody and the mayor's an easy target to do so, it's challenging. And I always remind people I get a fair amount of emails from next door because of misinformation. And I always remind people, when you call an elected official, talk to me like it's the first time you're telling me you have a problem, because it's the first time I'm hearing it from you. But people start like 100 miles an hour down the road with misinformation. And then it's really hard to talk people back and have reasonable conversations where we're at. All that to say, we're working on it. We have some plans in place. Nothing happens overnight. And just like everything in COVID, people have had massive loss. They've lost their jobs. Not everyone that you see that is homeless on the street is, drug addicted or an alcohol abuser. We have a really successful safe haven parking program. The average age of the person using that program is 70, and it is a woman. Our homeless population is really different than what people think it is. And so we've put some of those things into place. Of course, we have a lot of work to do. I probably spend 80% of my time right now having these conversations with business owners, residents, trying to reassure them we're moving the right direction. What we can't do under the federal law, the Boise v. Martin case, is tell people they cannot sleep on publicly owned streets. And so that is something I think the community wants us to gather people up and send them out of town. But that is a constitutionally protected right that we cannot violate in the city. And so if you took away one point from me tonight, we have a lot of constraints on us to do this. It is not that we are not solution driven. We are trying everything human possible to get things done, but we have to follow the law. We don't get to violate the law because it's an issue that people want us to do.
Yeah, that was a good response. And I knew the answer. I mean, some of the comments I saw today were from Cedar Mills, and some of that area is not even in Beaverton. It's part of Washington County. So I see people, blaming people, and I sit there thinking, from what I can see of their address or where they're at, that they're not even, they don't know which organization is doing the policing in their area.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the problems are people don't know where they live because our boundaries are really terrible. And I have a pretty low barrier approach. If people reach out to us and we can help them, even if they're in unincorporated, I do. But we always start with that lesson too. Like I'm probably, not everyone's mayor that's in those pipeline.
Yeah, the one good thing I'll say about Beaverton Police, if there's something going on, they get there fast. Whereas Portland, you may not even see a policeman,
Right.
even if it's an assault or something.
We do, and we have like a roaming police department, so they have like quadrants, so they're usually fairly close to where in areas operating when they get calls, and so that's something our police chief is really proud of. I don't know, James, if you want to. I don't know, Jim, are you going to moderate? Do you want me to ask people to?
Well, if you're asking questions, I'll let it.
Yeah.
And I did have another question for you. That is, you have the term limit thing, right? And you were counselor for 8 years before this. So, and this came up somewhere else, and it's a big question. Are you limited at 4 years, or can you go again to 12 years as mayor?
So you can run 12 years as mayor and 12 years as city council under our charter.
Okay, there's some city, and I don't remember which one right now, where this
Tigered.
Is a Tiger sort of a controversial issue, and I was sitting there just wondering what I was gonna ask at one of the CCI meetings, but then you're here. I thought I'd ask you, as you probably aware. Okay, I'll just go ahead and. Are there any other questions? I mean,
Mr. Williger has a question. You want to go ahead, James?
Hello, Madam Mayor. Well, I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance. I was a resident of the Greenway neighborhood for a very long time before I moved up to Redmond, Washington, and I'm now in the process of moving back. And I just have I'm happy to be back. I am also extremely happy to see that there is a climate action task force in effect. What I'm curious about is, in addition to the actions of the task force, do we have a comprehensive understanding as a city of where we actually are trying to go, or are we still in a very early stage of that? The reason I ask the question is that up in Redmond, they have a similar kind of task force, but they seem to be taking a, well, what do you guys want to do kind of approach. I'm curious to see whether there's actually been acknowledgement of other cities that have had successes. Does anybody even look, know what a carbon neutral city looks like? And if so, do we even know how to get from A to B?
Great question, James. We actually have a really robust climate action plan, and maybe Miles can Google it and drop it into the chat for everyone.
Awesome.
So we do have a climate action plan. We have goals to be carbon neutral by 2050. Obviously, I feel like that is not fast enough, and we're going to work on things to move there quicker. To me, the plan, when I was running for mayor, I talked a lot about this. The plan was very aspirational, but didn't have a lot of teeth. So one of the things that I wanted to do was create the climate action task force. So we had some community oversight to the plan to encourage council to think differently. And that plan should be like a living document. If something doesn't work or we need to move faster, let's get it in there to do other things. One of the things I've been lobbying in Salem for the last 2 weeks is it's called the REACH code. This is really wonky, but it has to do with construction of buildings. So the state, which is very weird in Oregon, has a base construction bill. Oregon is a state that generally does local control. So a lot of state rules don't impact cities the way that this particular bill impacts the cities. So we're 50% of a lot of emissions actually come from buildings. And so if we're going to have a meaningful step in the right direction, making sure future buildings are built to a code that's going to get us to the climate goals that we want. And so we've been lobbying as cities, as mayors to the state legislature, just saying, let us adopt our own REACH code. If the base code is what some cities want, fine. But cities like mine that have aggressive climate goals, we need to be able to set our own agenda. So the session's not over, TBD, but what we think is going to come out of that is a task force, which it actually has a lot of teeth in Oregon, although it is a win to get to a task force to be able to get some meaningful legislation for the 2023 session. So we're not perfect, but I would say we have a team that's dedicated to this work. We have staff at City Hall that do nothing but work in the climate action arena. And now this climate action task force has a Portland state consultant helping them move in a good direction. So it isn't just the sitting around, what do you want to do? We have a consultant, so we put our money where our mouth is.
Nice. Do we have as a city a tree canopy coverage goal?
No, And that is something I've been talking about for a very, very long time. And that's something I hope with our current council, we're able to actually move on, because it wasn't a desire of the council past, but we're an old grove tree city. And so the more that we cut away from our old grove, we're never going to get it back in my lifetime or my kid's lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it is something I feel a lot of pressure to solve this year or the next.
As somebody with 2 giant sequoias in his front yard, his brand new front yard, is something I'm very keen to see preserved. Anyway, thank you for your comment. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions from somebody?
Did you have a question? I saw your hand up a minute ago.
I was going to ask, I think most of it was covered by James's question, but I was going to ask what the city is doing to be proactive rather than reactive to the climate crisis in terms of what the city is doing. But I think that's probably covered in the climate action plan, but also in terms of what it's doing to guide or encourage citizens' behavior. Is there anything that's covered about that's covered in the climate action plan?
We've talked a lot about that from the elected body standpoint. It's something, you know, so I grew up in Southern California in the reduce, reuse, recycle stage, and we put so much pressure on end users that we often overlooked, you know, buildings and things that like the corporate side of the equation was doing. So our plan does have a whole section for individuals, but here in Oregon, I would say we're really well equipped to do a lot of that stuff ourselves. And so I've been mostly focusing on the bigger pots versus individual users, but there is a portion of the plan that does that. So I know that Miles dropped it in there. And so I would suggest looking through it and email me if there's things in there that you guys are seeing that maybe doesn't hit the mark. We're in a good time with our climate action plan to look at new ideas.
Anybody else?
There was one question dropped into the chat. How do you address the balance between helping the homeless and making the city more attractive for homeless to settle here?
That's a great question. And I think that's something we're constantly looking at through the lens of how do we balance dignity for our houseless communities and also making sure that we preserve what is really special about Beaverton and being able to live here. So some of the things that I've been working with in downtown Beaverton is, you know, we have a severe weather shelter. We contract somebody that runs it. Are we inspecting what we expect of them? So if trash and grocery carts and stuff like that are starting to come outside, are we enforcing the rules of the contract to make sure that they're walking outside the building and picking up trash? What can we do with our own you know, outdoor team to make sure we're doing those kind of things? We have a bike patrol team. We have 4 police officers in the city that do nothing but dedicated to this problem. They are, I would say, the best in the state. And I argue with mayors all the time. Our bike police officers know the population that is homeless, and we've done a really good job. You know, I know some people have reached out and seen what's happening in the bike shelter, but I'd like you to know that has not been the same group of people. Our bike team has gotten 3 or 4 different occupants of that shelter into more stable housing, into our safe haven parking program, into mental health services at the police department. But I know sometimes we look at it and we're kind of coming by on a daily basis and don't like, it just seems like it's the same people, but we're, you know, they're doing a little bit of whack-a-mole to get them in there. We're looking at the design to make, you know, to maybe encourage less people from being in the area. But livability is what brought me to Beaverton. Livability is something, you know, I care deeply about. And so, you know, what do we need to do with trash removal? What do we need to do to make sure we have more porta potties to address, you know, the human function of, you know, sleeping outside has a health issue component to it. So there is no perfect answer, but just know, I mean, that is something we talk about all the time. And then once we have kind of resources in place, like if we've been able to offer you a place in our shelter or being able to offer you a place in our safe haven parking and you're choosing not to go, how we handle that situation is vastly different than if we have no resources at all. You know, we have to start with a place of compassion, and most of the people will go that way. Then we'll be left with the high offenders that, you know, are choosing kind of this ability to be outside and being obstinate and not wanting to participate.
Okay, you see anyone else, Miles?
James has another question. Go ahead, James.
Only if no one else does, because I know I have already had a chance to speak once.
But no, you can go ahead. We're not hurting on time.
Okay, thank you,
So,
Mr.
I
Chairman.
mean, yeah, we're in good shape.
I
Besides,
don't know
the
about, I
police-
mean, I hope I was in good shape, but
well, the
I need to get my
community.
walking in.
As a matter of fact, I'll mention it right now. Just we have time because the community police didn't show up again, which has been a regular occurrence, and
I see.
you know, sort
Um,
of bugs me in a way. But we send them notice of meeting, and then they don't show up. Anyway, that's my gripe for the mayor right now. And anyway, James, it's yours.
I appreciate that, sir. So on a lark while I was listening to the last answer, so I was looking up on the community gardens in town. And it looks like they're either the same plots or the same amount as the last time I lived in town, which was about 10 to 15 years ago. I'm blessed that the house that I just bought has a yard, and so I won't have a personal need for them, but I've learned over the last couple of years the importance of community gardens for food security, for cultural consistency, especially for immigrant and refugee populations. And I'm curious whether there are any plans to expand the set of gardens, especially since looking at the website, it looks like Kennedy Gardens is technically not owned by the city and therefore could be developed at any time with a year's notice. So is that something that the city's keeping an eye on? And if so, I'd love to hear the plans.
So, here in Beaverton, we have a special district park, meaning that they have a separate elected body. So all of the parks in the city are operated under a different government than the city. And so I do know that they talk a lot about community gardens. And so what I would do is email them. They're the ones that kind of do it. The city doesn't have any garden plots that we own and operate because we only have 1 or 2 parks in the entire city that are city run and operated. So I do know that they talk a lot about this, and majority of the parks, the plots you see are owned and operated by them.
The ones that I see listed on the city are owned and operated by the city, it looks like. So I apologize if I got that wrong, but I was looking at Welsh Centennial on 10th and Erickson, and it says owned by the city. So you're saying that there are other gardens beyond these that are owned by THPRD?
Yeah, and that one in Erickson is run by THPRD. I used to live in that neighborhood. So we might just have them listed, but Miles dropped it to THPRD community gardens too. But
Splendid.
I am hoping some entrepreneurial person in the future will have an Airbnb garden set up in their front yard, and we can look towards a non-government approach to solving this particular problem. But so, I think that rent a garden space is, you heard it here first, someone can develop that app, but there's a lot of space in the city where I think this could happen and naturally occur.
I would say that with Becky still in chat here, I would say that if we're going to be rebuilding my old alma mater of Beaverton High School, having something on the rooftop there would not be a bad idea.
And it's something I would love us to learn to operate more on the rooftops, how we're doing rooftop gardens. And Becky, go ahead and chime in if you're coming back in. But there's a lot of work to do in this arena.
We're so into career technical education. That would be, a wonderful way to bring those kind of interests together because it's not just about sustainability. It's just all the different jobs there are that are surrounding how we come up with food technology and sorts of things. So, we've got some great innovative thinkers at Beaverton High School. So I think that there's every possibility as we go forward. But I'm looking forward to you coming back to town and putting your energy to work. That's what we need, don't you think?
I'll see what I can do. I was on the Parks and Trails Commission up in Redmond, so I'm definitely looking for opportunities I can serve in town.
Hi, Ann. Are you gonna ask the mayor a question? Is there anybody else with a question for the mayor? I guess, yeah, but we kept you 30 minutes.
I'm heading to West Slope after this, so hopefully they're as nice and kind. I will say the upswing of COVID, which there's not a lot, and I want to be somebody that focuses on some of the good things. the kind of engagement we've had at the city council because of these digital platforms, it's been a lot more robust. And I think, for me, I'm able to go to 3 NAC meetings tonight that would have not been possible in a pre-pandemic world. And I know a lot of us are jonesing to get back in person, but I hope that we remember some of these good things that have come out of COVID. A lot more people watch our city council. They're able to engage. They're able to come and testify. They don't have to come to city hall. We've seen a huge uptick in people's interest in what we're doing. So one of the things that I hope we keep beyond the pandemic, even if we meet in person, is every once in a while continuing in these spaces. So, working families can attend, seniors that maybe don't want to be, that are housebound can attend more meetings. So there's been some positives, and I think this is one of them. So thanks for having me tonight. Invite me back anytime. Most of you know me. I know most of the people in this room. I'm easy to get a hold of. So if you want to schedule time and meet with me, we have a scheduler app. You can reach out to my scheduler and book 15 minutes with me. So, if you want to come and chat about anything, that's the way to do it.
Thank you, Lacey, and glad you could show up. Okay, let's
Awesome.
go. Miles, you said you had a city update. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. 1 second here. The city is updating its Beaverton community vision starting this year. It's the city's guiding tool to help inform city priorities. And we're looking for a bunch of different input from community members to provide a framework for helping determine what kind of community we want to have in the future. There'll be different opportunities, surveys, virtual and live events, and other ways to participate. The goals include involving the city's population in the process, a focus on intentional outreach to the traditionally underrepresented groups, and being responsive to the changing needs of the community, and developing a final product that will be useful for city council and staff. The original community vision plan was adopted in 2010. The latest update was in 2016. And milestones are compiled and shared each year on the city's website. The 2016 vision realized and inspired many city projects that have been completed or are currently in development. Learn more at beavertonoregon.gov/vision. Beaverton City Council election filing is underway. Residents interested in running for election to the Beaverton City Council can obtain a candidate's filing handbook. The deadline in filing is Tuesday, March 8th at 5 p.m. There are 4 city council positions elected at large that are open. Council positions 1, 2, and 5 will be nominated at the primary election and then elected at the general election to serve a 4-year term. At the primary election, the 2 candidates with the most votes for each position will proceed to the general election ballot. If one candidate receives a majority of all votes cast, then that candidate alone is nominated to the general election ballot. The candidate with the majority of votes at the general election is elected. We also have council position 3 vacant due to a resignation with 3 years remaining on the unexpired term for that office. Candidates need to be 18 years of age, qualified elector of the state, and have lived in the city limits 6 months prior to the election date. Primary election is May 17th, 2022, and the general election is November 8th, 2022. There's more information on the website, beavertonoregon.gov/elections. And then tune into city council meetings. The next one is February 22nd. They've got a lot going on this month. They're looking at the Comprehensive School Resource Officer Review, Milliken Way Extension Project, and the Downtown Equity Strategy. They have some work sessions on the legislative bills, capital improvement plan, and reimbursement districts. And they'll also discuss their 2-year strategic goals. Meeting and agendas can be found on beavertonoregon.gov/city-council. Those are all the updates I have. If there's any questions for the city.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, Miles. And actually, we're not far off the schedule. Local land use issues, and there's nothing specific to Greenway, but you may have noticed a lot of construction going on 217 and Shoals and Hall both. And just remind you, if you're curious what's going on with the freeway of 217, it's www.highway217.org. And, maybe Miles, the next day or so, you can send out all these links plus this one too. There's things we discussed in the meeting, and here are the links to it. I think it'd be good. And I'm not gonna go further than that. We also, the next segment is neighborhood concerns, visitors' comments. I guess we have none, so we're in pretty good shape.
I'll make a comment.
Okay, great, go ahead.
For anybody that wants to buy native plants, the Friends of the Tualatin Hills Nature Park is partnering with Sparrowhawk and having an online sale like they did in the fall. And sales are open from February 15th to March 15th. And pickup is at the Nature Park in April. If you select the Nature Park as your pickup location, is April 14th and 15th, I believe, the Friday and Saturday. I think it's Easter weekend in April. And that money that they raise goes to support the nature park and programs there.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. Okay, now on the BCCI report.
Ramona has her hand up.
Yeah, Ramona, I was coming to you. I don't know, is this about something else, or is it you're the BCCI rep now?
I have a concern about the fact that we only have quarterly NAC meetings, and yet it's getting so the majority of the time we're not having any kind of representation from the police or the fire. And I know that the South Beaverton NAC meets the same night we do at the same time. And I tend to think that that's probably where the reps go rather than to come to our NAC. And so I'm wondering at this point whether it would make more sense for us to combine the two NACs once again, if they're going to meet on the same night at the same time.
I've thought of that too, especially if we don't have somebody jumping up to be the new chair at the end of the year, because I'm reaching the point. And I'm not sure what this administration is through. I've gone through, back especially in the 90s, we went through a lot of heads of the neighborhood office, and one head would encourage it, the next one said you can't do it. We at one time met with South Beaverton, and actually Highland was sitting in at some of our meetings, and the neighborhood office shut us down on that. Now this was a long time ago, so and I'm not sure. Miles has probably got better ideas. Now, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I would like to talk it over with my colleagues and then talk to the South Beaverton group too. But to your point, Ramona, about the officer not being here, I apologize. I'm going to follow up with his sergeant tomorrow morning and find out why he wasn't here. They're supposed to be here. So if he's on duty, maybe he was on a call and we'll find out. But yeah, I will definitely follow up, Ramona, and I'll make sure that somebody's at the next meeting, whether it's the officer assigned or the sergeant or someone to give the report. So
yeah, I'm not in disagreement on merging in. South Beaverton does have a lot of younger people that are, a lot more ambitious than in our group. And like I said, our NAC is getting up there in age, right? But obviously we're still able to do our things. So this is something to discuss. And I understand where Ramona's coming from, because things from the city and that kind of stuff, we get them every 2 or 3 months, don't get them much at all during the summer. And maybe it would be better. Okay. We'll get into a little more discussion on that, Ramona. Okay. Let's see. Oh, the CCI report. Are you ready for that? I
We had election of officers.
right.
CCI meeting. Consisted of.
And yeah, sometimes it's really hard to relate to CC. I mean, also, do you remember the date for the voters forum? I was going to look that up and I didn't. It's not that easy to find on the webpage. I don't know, maybe Miles knows when the voters forum is going to be. It's going to be at the new auditorium. So I think, Miles, I'm sort of leaving it to you.
I'm looking.
Pardon?
I'm looking for the answer. Just give.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I tried looking through the Beaverton, and it looks like most of the hits I came up with were previous ones.
April 28th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, it's gonna be, is it gonna be a hybrid one, or did they say?
They haven't decided yet.
Okay. But it's obviously gonna be an important one. So what date did you say again it was?
April 28th.
6:30. And we're saying there'll be like 4 city councilors. And I'm assuming there'll be competition for each thing. There's been a, at least there has been lately in the last few elections. It'll be an interesting voters forum. Anything else, Shimona? Or you're okay. Old business. And again, this is where combining might be good because there's already CCI is looking at a way to combine NACs to do some projects, right? And hopefully get more people. And obviously having some younger people helps a bunch. We are still doing our Adopt a Road program. I'm looking at probably in April we'll start. And my hope is to do one in April, June, August, and October. That would be 4. That's really what the city wanted as far as, doing Adopt a Road. It's gotten all messed up because of COVID and everything lately. So I'm gonna, around the time of the April meeting, try to get that going. And maybe we can, if we merge with South Beaverton, maybe we can take a little more road in and maybe do some of Downing or something like that, so that, and get more people involved. So,
Downing now.
huh?
All of Downing now. It's a short street.
Oh, and Downing, I mean Conestoga. Maybe add some of Conestoga. We should add Longhorn now because it's only a block, right? But it's yeah, we do all of Downing now. But if we had a good crew of like 6 or 8 people, we could do more, right? So we'll see. Of course, the weather's been against us a lot of times. Last week it would have been ideal, right? If I could have predicted it. Okay.
Well, let me put in a request that it not be the second Saturday of the month because I have a firm commitment every month.
Okay. I'm thinking of doing it maybe the weekend after the meeting, just because that way I can get it out and get the word out. Okay, any new business anybody has? Ann? Your name's up there anyway. Okay.
They asked
Um,
about the Adopted or the Road project, Jim. How are you letting people know when it is?
The what?
The Adopt a Road project, when you have.
Oh, well, what? I will just have Miles send an email out. Or if it's at the right time and with relation to the meeting, it'll be as part of the agenda. I'm trying to predict whether we don't have, and last time, because I was worried about not having enough people, I actually contacted people I knew would volunteer to make sure, because we need 2 teams minimum, and I'm not gonna do a team with less than 2 people on it. And, that's what I said, Downing's not real long, and two groups of 2 people can get everything done in maybe an hour and a half or something like that. That's why if we had more people, we could add a little more to it. But I've also had a lot of no-shows, so.
Well,
I will
I've never seen any notification of it. I've only heard posts about it. So
Well,
I'm just curious how people are notified and how far in advance they're notified so they can plan for it.
right. Well, I'll make sure the word gets out this year when we do it. Okay, it was just an email to everybody. Okay, anything else? I don't know, is there anybody here that's new to the meeting? Because if I looked through some of the names, I didn't recognize everybody, but they may have been somebody else, and we can put you on our regular email list.
Hi, Chair Percy. Yeah, this is James. I'm new.
Hi, do you want to be on our mailing list?
Absolutely.
Email list? Okay. The guy that takes care of that is Miles.
Yep,
I'll get it back.
I'll reach out to Miles.
Yeah, reach out to Miles, and anybody else that's you might.
Not
Well,
necessarily new, but there's a comment in chat from someone that thought they'd sign up for the road cleanup and never gotten a time and place.
okay,
Never
I'll make
received
sure.
notification.
And I haven't always got to everybody because the fact that I was trying to verify those that I knew had showed up and were working. Okay, so anyway, I tell you what, Miles, maybe you can put your email address on this, and anybody that isn't part of our list can just send an email to Miles letting him know that you'd like to be on the Greenway NAC list. There's a lot of, there's a lot of notices you get from the city that relate to NACs and this that are make it worthwhile to be on the list. Even if you don't regularly attend the meetings, I think you find it informative. And okay, so there's Miles' email. There's also, we've done this at CCI, but can you explain how to save this if they want to save it for draft? I mean, I know roughly how to do it, but I don't see the 3 little dots or whatever it's on here.
The settings haven't been set in this room to save chat. And you can't copy and paste out of it either.
Okay. It shouldn't be that way. It should be able to save it. So I will check on that.
Okay, well, maybe you can get this list out to the, as an after meeting email with the links and, anybody that wants to sign up for our list. And that should do the job. Anyway, anything else? Nothing at all? Then I will adjourn the meeting 15 minutes early. Thank you for coming.